Hi, how's it going? Shane Bengal with the Mana Group. I'm here today to talk about ADUs and all things like where you can get a little bit extra out of your land or your property. Today, I want to spend on this video, I'll do a second video with discussion of how to utilize your lot, maybe to have a second build or another property. But today, I want to talk about ADUs, which we commonly are called accessory dwelling units. Um, Basically just a second home or living space on your property. This becomes obviously something that many people look into as children maybe are getting a little bit older and are ready to leave the house, but need to save up some money as parents get a lot older and maybe need to come back to the house for care. As well as many people use it as revenue producing with Airbnb. It's a great asset to have. It's also really nice that you have family come and visit, they can stay in the ADU, um, and then you can also utilize it for additional revenue. So I love accessory dwelling units. I think they're a great thing. Can be maybe expensive to build, but they can generate enough revenue to pay for themselves. So let's talk about what is allowed. The city of Spokane uh, recently adopted like the statewide legislation to have high density living. So on most city lots, you're allowed up to 4 dwelling units. So that really opened the door for people to have ADUs and the like. Every city and county has different jurisdictions and different guidelines. So Spokane Valley has not adopted this legislation. And so they kind of have their own legislation. And then both Spokane Valley and the city of Spokane have, rules that are dictated by the county. And different counties have different rules all across the board. Pend Oreille County, Stevens County. So with every county having different rules, I'm going to talk specifically about Spokane County. They allow on your property for you to have an 800 foot square foot footprint for an ADU. So you can't exceed that. There's also things to be concerned about. What setbacks are allowed. Typically, it's 5 feet from the property line, and then 5 feet from other buildings on the line on the property. So you have to keep those in mind. There are some ways to get some variances with that. If you do fireproofing, you can have it a little bit closer. If you get an exemption to have the building closer to the property line, there's ways to go about that. So if you were a little bit tight, there's some ways to figure that out. But the 800 square foot footprint allows you to also have a basement and or a second story. So 800 square feet may seem small, and typically ADUs are pretty small, but you could also dig out a basement and or build a second story most times. So I mean, you can stretch that space out, and that's living space. You can have nice decks or patios or balconies off of them, so you can make a pretty awesome ADU on most properties in the county of Spokane. So these are just great options to have. They're really awesome. There's some argument and complaint about like how dense housing is, and I say over here in the PNW, we definitely appreciate having living space spread out, and so there's argument for both. If you have any questions about ADUs and what's allowed and whatnot, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help you answer any of those questions.